so I know that my childhood is very similar to the childhood of other scientists who I've subsequently got to know as colleagues. I was that irritating young person who kept asking questions. I was always wanting to know not only what things were, but how they worked. I couldn't accept that to be told the name of something was enough, and I irritated many people as a young person, chasing these questions. And I suspect I still do the same, challenging within my government job for people to explain to me the basis of what they're doing. It seems derives back from that childhood experience. And of course, that led on to the scientific career that you've heard about, the PhD, the postdoc, the subsequent university posts. That's a fairly linear trajectory, and then suddenly it went strangely non-linear. And I therefore need another point of explanation in my past, and that is that I was brought up in South Africa. I was brought up in a country that was torn apart by political issues. And being in South Africa in that period, if you will recall, I left in 1963. 1963 was the period when, in the early part of that year, Nelson Mandela was a free man, known as the Black Pimpernel, who would suddenly appear at large meetings and address them, and just as the police arrived, he disappeared. And the political clampdown that followed was massive. And that was my experience leading up to this, being brought up in this political climate. It was a climate in which I would suggest it was impossible, if I may use an English expression, to sit on the fence. If you were not for the government, they decided you were against it. And so there was little choice. If you were a challenging young person asking questions, as I kept doing, about the political situation, inevitably you ran into difficulties. And so in that period, when I was doing my PhD, I began writing letters to the newspapers, which were essentially, let us say, unfriendly towards the apartheid regime. And the result was that this young, naive man was suddenly approached by the regime, and I was taken in and examined, and the outcome of that was that I was given two choices, which was to leave and never to return, or to stay and face the consequences. And I opted to leave, and I could not tell anyone, so my PhD supervisor was simply amazed when 3 months later I presented my PhD thesis and got on a boat and left the country. I had been given 3 months to leave. So I was politicized through that background, and it's only now when I look back on it that I could see that it prepared me for my position in government. So although material science is highly relevant to the issues of today, as Professor Zakina has laid out, and my work I have hoped to deliver into the challenges of today from fundamental science. But nevertheless, the interest in politics led me to always work on an international level, which all scientists do, but always discussing political systems with scientists around the world. So when I come into a government position, I had no idea. I had no idea what I could bring into government that people didn't have already. But looking back on it now, I see that, in fact, there was something real to do. The post of Chief Scientific Advisor is rather unique. It was invented by Winston Churchill during the Second World War. Early on in the war, Churchill decided that he should have a chief scientist at his right arm. And he appointed Professor Lindemann, who was head of physics in the laboratory in Oxford. And Lindemann was there at his right arm throughout the Second World War period, advising him on many different issues. The successive governments in Britain have simply kept the post going. So the post has remained ever since, the tradition is to pluck somebody out from the university sector who has made a status for themselves as respected scientists and put them alongside the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. But at the same time, and I have to stress, the office has developed very significantly over that period of time. So the office now has 300 members of staff. It's a substantial operation. When I came into the office, the budget, which goes out to our research councils, so I have to stress, not the budget for operating what I do in government, but the budget was £1.4 billion. And because the focus of my attention has actually been on science, innovation, and wealth creation, the government of Britain now sees investment in science as an absolute imperative to retain our global competitiveness within a fully globalized economy. And so today the budget is £3.5 billion. So a very substantial increase over a relatively short period of time. And as we move forward, we have to continue to address that issue of science, innovation, wealth creation from the science base to keep the public funding of science in Britain on this rising trajectory. But we have been the best funded part of government for the last 6 years. All right, so when I came into the job, what could I bring to it? No experience of government whatsoever. So coming into government, it was like walking into a dark room without any lights on. I had no clue of what the challenges were ahead of me. But suddenly I find that those international networks, whether it's international PhD students, traveling to conferences, talking to colleagues around the world, and the political understanding of the bigger world that I had developed is quite different from the sort of experience that the average politician has, which tends to be rather parochial. Politicians start in a small village or town, develop their community, and then eventually are projected into positions of national responsibility without this bigger view. And equally, the civil servants. The civil servants have a rather narrow view of the world because their training is really quite different. So that was the first surprise to me, to discover that just bringing an international purview into government was itself something of great value. And of course, there was the other side to it, which is bringing what science can deliver into government. And so let me state now my position on this. I believe you can govern without science, but I certainly believe you cannot govern well without science. And when I say you cannot govern without science well, I mean without science informing almost every aspect of the decision-making process. And that has been what I have projected into the British government. It has not been an easy task because governments are not focused on what science can deliver. Every inch of the way has to be a battle to deliver what can be done. But of course, when it does deliver, it delivers handsomely, and so it snowballs into a better position.